Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about The Expanse, Season 5, Episode 6. It's called Tribes. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. So that's what, very interesting again, the structure of how we know what characters we follow and when.
Yeah.
Because Holden and Avasarala get one scene basically each at the start of the episode, and then we again focus mainly on Amos with a decent bit. And I wouldn't even say it's Naomi. Naomi has a couple of scenes, but it's actually more just the ship in general. It's more Marco. It's more the other crew.
And that intersects with Drummer as well.
Of course, yeah. With some of the more intriguing moments, because we speculated that maybe Drummer going to see them might have developments with the Naomi stuff, and it didn't necessarily quite have the she realized she's there, but there was a couple of moments where it was being kept secret. Marco was not telling her that Naomi's been held there captive because he knows that'll be something that she has a problem with. He knows that that'll cause conflict. And
Quite the opposite. She's like, I'll pass on a message.
Yeah, but Philip almost lets it up, and Drummer's smart, and she heard the start of that sentence, and she's sort of looking at him at the end of that scene. But the bigger things there, of course, is that Marco is getting very concerned, I think, that Philip is bonding with his mother and is starting to learn things, because it's Drummer who mentions basically their adventures, particularly season 3 in the Behemoth, and he goes to ask Naomi about it, and Marco's watching on the camera, showing that he is becoming concerned that he's losing the loyalty of his son. A scene, of course, which precedes this earlier on in the episode, is the scene where, and I actually really appreciate this because the reaction, of course, to what Naomi did last episode, I felt should be severe to maybe really further sell Marco's, not his attention, but his just how harsh he is. Like, is he going to keep letting Naomi off? Is he going to, because thus far, Philip choosing to bring her here, other than like a mild "I'm a little disappointed in you for making that choice" scene that we got like an episode or two ago, he's mostly been very open, tried to like include her, hoping she'll kind of come over to his side, kind of thing. From a distance, it's not like he's been really invested in trying to achieve that himself, but he's been open to the idea. But here he's immediately like, "All right, spacer." Throw her out, and I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad that we've really established he's not attached to Naomi.
This is the sort of thing that should get that response.
Yeah, but I think it's important to show that he's not attached to her himself. Like he doesn't have affection for her, because you might think he would, but he doesn't.
Not at all.
And this is actually where we get to see Uncle Sin kind of stand up and kind of be who Naomi thought he was. Because she kind of said, I was hoping you'd be there for him, a big good influence, blah, blah. And, we get the sense this is someone she liked, and we can kind of see why we'd expect him to be the good uncle type character. But this scene here where he steps in and says, "No, if you're going to space her, Marco, do it your goddamn self. I'm not doing it. I'm not spacing Naomi. And you're not bringing him into it."
And more importantly, I'm not letting him do it.
Yeah. That was a big turning point, I think, for these characters. And it's right after this where Philip goes to Naomi and is very angry, and I actually, the thought I had during the scene, this is the Die Hard scene, and what I mean by that is in Die Hard when long-haired blonde German man is very upset and he's smashing things, and Holly's like, "John's alive," because the only reason why he's this upset is that John's alive, and that's Naomi's thing here. She's like, "Oh, my people are okay, because you wouldn't be making this much of a fuss if what I did made no impact." So yeah. That's a simple little thing, but here Naomi says to him, like, you don't really understand what Marco's done to you yet. You don't understand what he's made you become and the tragedy of that, but one day it will hit you that you helped kill millions of people. And
I mean, the guilt she feels over a significantly smaller amount, and she was tricked into it, essentially. She knows what's coming for him.
So, and it's that weird thing, despite the fact she's not been there, she can relate to him on this in a way that a lot of people won't be able to, and that will sort of further their bond. So I think there's a lot here to really kind of build the relationship out of something, and the idea that he's by the end of the episode getting curious and wanting to know about these adventures, and okay, I know what my father does, I know what type of person he is, but what does she do? What is...
And I really like the moment where, and then he tells her, oh, he was going to kill you. You've just thrown away your life for this. And she's like, yeah, but I got my people safe, so it was worth it. The sacrifice she's willing to make. And she kind of says to him, it's like, you're willing to, lay down your life for him, and he'll use that, but he won't lay down his for you. And it's that he's just starting to get these, seeds of doubt.
Yeah, I think the other big important part of that is seeing Sin stand up to him, and it's that moment afterwards when they're in the elevator or whatever together, and he says, I've never seen you two come to blows like that, or almost coming to blows like that. And Sin says, it wouldn't have been the first time. And the look in Philip's face is really, like, it says a lot about his perception of how loyal he thinks Sin is to his father and what their relationship is, that he can't even imagine them getting angry at each other.
Yeah. Whereas the reality is, Sin has had these confrontations before, just not in front of Philip, presumably.
I also get the impression it's maybe been a long time, that maybe he has become complacent and just started to follow him and take his, as a sort of a divine leader who's going to lead us to the promised land. He's not been questioning things for a while, and it's only Naomi prodding him and saying, what you haven't helped stop my son from becoming, his kind of, even if he hasn't realised it, it's prodded something in him that
he feels a little bit guilty that he's not been doing his best.
So yeah, all that stuff was ticking along very nicely. The actual drummer stuff, obviously, I was fascinated to see where this was going to go. They come in and it is this main fleet, because obviously when we cut to the ships now that Marco was on, because when it's obviously he's on one ship, but there's a whole fleet of them. It just says the Free Navy. Yeah, it just says the Free Navy now. In the same way that it says Drummer's Faction when it goes to her, because she's got 3 ships.
Yes.
Marco has much more. And with much more firepower, as they point out when they're like, wait, these are Martian ships. Wait.
It's like, oh, we can't shoot our way out of this shit now.
Yeah. And that's the big thing. So a couple of things that I loved here is that there is no... Because part of me was thinking, well, he knows that Drummer and Ashford were close. So I was wondering how that was going to come up. And I kind of really loved that it immediately did. Like, as soon as she walked in the room, the conversation just shifted to Ashford immediately. And she told him, what that song he was singing means. And furthermore, even lets him know, I know what he sang when he was dying. Like, that's the idea that Marco wouldn't even have known that there was a recording of that.
And you got to imagine that rattles him a little bit. It's like, well, what else does she potentially know?
Yeah, and obviously he's like, hey, I want you to join the Free Navy. It is your choice. And obviously we'll get to the choice, quote unquote. But some concerns are raised, and it's sort of interesting ones, actually, where Drummer's guy says, yeah, but what about food? Like, we get all our soil from Earth, and how do we grow food without? And he has an answer for that. Ganymede's farms.
Even before you get to this level, though, the idea of a choice seems pretty tenuous when they're brought on board. They're like, right, hand over your weapons. And she goes, and what if I don't? It's like, well, then you can leave and we'll shoot you down as an enemy.
Yeah, Kiral, this character here, whose name I've only just started to learn because she's becoming more important, she obviously is the most devout. In fact, she even says to Marco, after the whole confrontation with Sin, like, next time you want her spaced, ask me to do it. Like, making it very clear she is more than willing to space Naomi. And that was shown last episode that she has animosity towards her. But clearly she's not as diplomatic. And maybe diplomacy's not even the right word here, because it's not real diplomacy, it's more manipulation, but she's clearly not got the face for the sleazy used car salesman politics. She's
a little bit blunt.
Yeah. But the debate about whether or not, because they go back to the ship and they have a meeting with their crew, and they have this debate, and there's this one guy, and I love that this guy, I mean, obviously he's been there this season, like, on the ship, but he's, I don't know his name, he's barely a red shirt. But I kind of love that this random guy who we barely know is the one who speaks up and says, and he never, like, because this is the thing, we've been kind of expecting some Belters to be very pro Marco and really buy into this and go along with it, the idea of being intoxicated by the idea of power and becoming important. And he never actually does that. And I really kind of like this, where he's just very level-headed and logical. There is no choice here. If we disagree with Marco, we might not die immediately, but we're going to be enemies, and he's going to kill us. This is not really a choice, and we need to stop pretending that it is. and no one can disagree with them. No one really has, and there's some moral arguments brought up, but ultimately it's either join him or die, and that's just how it is.
It is essentially a case of, give up your moral integrity and live, or just your outright defiance and rebellion, essentially.
Yeah,
I think it's really neat how this kind of. Well, I mean, maybe not immediately, not directly, but it's the only choice they have. Their only real choice left for survival after that is to go and join, Earth or Mars, essentially fighting against him.
And that was one of the things that I thought was really interesting here. And obviously, before that though, the idea that I think the real choice here or outcome, even if it's not a conscious one right now, is that it's okay, join. But I've got a sneaking suspicion that Drummer is going to be an ally for everyone else when the time comes, when push comes to shove, when Holden needs something, when Naomi especially needs something, because Naomi and her are close. I feel like her loyalty to Marco is a facade until, just to stay alive until opportunity presents itself, kind of thing.
Definitely. But I do really like how this thematically really ties in with the Amos stuff.
Oh, of course,
for this episode, the idea of giving up your moral integrity to survive, and even bigger and smaller tribes.
Yeah, I was going to say even the tribe talk from Amos and the other stuff is because this is kind of the opposite, where they're becoming one big tribe.
Yes.
Whereas on Earth, people are and it's not a 1-to-1, but the idea he's talking about in a post-apocalyptic society, which is not quite that, but it feels like that to them on the ground because everything's in chaos right now. That everyone's kind of out for themselves, yada yada yada. People are buying toilet roll and the dozens.
The true dark times.
That's a 2020 reference. I never thought it'd be relevant to The Expanse. Is that just as important as water and oxygen? Getting the toilet paper in from Earth? They need to do the toilet paper.
I like to think they're more civilized and have bidets.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
It's probably a waste of water, frankly, but
yeah, I'm gonna say.
It's worth it.
Maybe not in the belt. Maybe on Earth when you can just go to the lake and get some more water. But
yeah,
not that people go and retrieve their own water for their. But you know what I mean.
But there are large bodies of water.
Yes, the supplies. The supplies.
Yes.
On Earth we're often more concerned with drowning sometimes than we are about running out of water. Depending on your location. Obviously, if you're middle of the desert, that's not as true. But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So. The other thing about this scene that I think is interesting is that one of the arguments here is that if we don't join up, that the Inners are going to come for war because of what Marco's done. And while I do expect there's maybe some truth to that, and I understand why they're expecting that, I think it's kind of interesting that from what we've seen of Earth and what we've seen from what's left of the political body right now, and we'll get into that scene later, there is no hint right now of Earth just blanketly saying we're going to attack all outers. We're not, there's nothing like that as far as we've seen.
I'm assuming they don't realize the current state of the UN, for example. They don't realize just how bad it is. They're just operating under the assumption that no, this is happening.
Because that's the other thing is that it feels like it's going to escalate to that point because as Marco brings in more people, and one of the small details when Drummer's coming out of the ship is they notice that 2 of the guards are from different factions, and the idea being that he's got representatives, he's swapped personnel with 2 of these bigger factions, and they're 2 of the more popular ones, so that means that he's got a lot of support. So it implies how sort of big his unification sort of idea is getting, and so that happening means that they're probably right in a sense that eventually this is going to lead to all-out war because Marco's unified too much of the belt. It's going to get to the point where Earth and Mars might have to just say, okay, we have to treat them as a civilization that we're at war with, regardless of the fact that X number of people in the belt and the the people like Drummer's faction, so on and so on, even though technically now they've allied themselves, but clearly didn't want to. But the idea that eventually, even though they know there's innocent people in the belt who want nothing to do with this and probably hate it, they have to just declare war at that point. So it does kind of feel like it's going eventually that way, but I think it's interesting that we have the perspective of both sides where we get to see that, no, if Asarala and co are very aware that this is Marco's doing, that he is a terrorist, and it's not everyone in the belt that was for this. I mean, she was familiar with Fred and, talked and, communicated with him and stuff.
But
so
ultimately, Marco is going around swallowing up the different factions. Eventually, he'll represent enough of them where it's basically the same as saying he represents the belt.
Yeah, it's kind of it's the tragedy of it. It's the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes kind of method where it shouldn't escalate to this point, but Marco is forcing it into a position where they have to declare war on them when it doesn't seem like Earth wants that in the first place, but eventually they're going to have to because he's going to put them into a corner where that's really the only choice. And I think that's so. And again, because that's the other thing with Drummer when he talks to her, is because she's like, "Oh, you've just put us in a war against the Inners for no reason." And Marco's response is, "Oh, we were already at war. It was just very slow, and you didn't realize it." And that's that's the words of an extremist. That's the words of someone who's trying to convince everyone of this is the most thing we have to do. This is what we're doing. When every indication, the slow diplomatic process that Fred and Dawes seem to be engaging in building up Tycho and policing the belt with Ashford and all that. Things were getting better, but obviously that progress to Marco didn't seem. It just seemed like, oh no, we're just doing their bidding, even though every indication that we got before was no, this was Fred and it was Dawes and it was Ashford and it was them trying to make these positive changes and turn the belt into more of a unionized system that has its own force and law system and so on and so on. So it's fascinating watching this stuff play out because it really. It's really layered watching both sides of this and watching this develop and kind of and as much as we see Marco as the villain and he is by far a terrorist, you can't just ignore the fact that the reason why there's a lot of people who feel this way is because of how Earth and Mars treated the belt for ever.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're innocent in this. Not that is just justification for
it's
genocide.
Not saying they had it coming. It's more just this feels like an inevitability of the situation that they created.
Yeah, well, it comes back to innocent lives again. Like the millions of people that died, 99.99999% of them have absolutely nothing to do with anything the belt's ever had to go through. That's just the way it is. And likewise, all the people that Marco's probably going to get killed by forcing them into this war on his side of things, a lot of them didn't plan any of this. A lot of them only kind of joined up because they were forced to or because it felt like the only choice. It just is the crushing inevitability of everything that of course the show in a lot of ways is about trying to fight its way out of. It's about no, we can do better than this, we can navigate this and avoid these pitfalls, which is something a lot of media about politics tries to do and tries to sort of teach and maybe make us think about, if nothing else. So all that stuff's great. Dare I say, is it the highlight of the episode? I don't know, because Amos's stuff is really interesting in its own right, and I think it's especially telling to me the moment this episode chooses to cut to credits on. I think
it's a hell of a moment, isn't it?
I love it because I think if you describe it, it's so downbeat, but because of what it means to Amos as a character, and if Amos is our conduit for like how screwed up are things in the Expanse universe right now, the idea that Amos realizing that he is starting to do darker things, and because it's a moment where we'll get to the deaths and hows and what, but he's essentially killed a man for supplies, and the guy was being an evil dick. I mean, he kind of had he did kind of have it coming by the time he was killed, but
he actively sought him out to kill him.
The idea being like the Calissa brings up is like, what if he wasn't a bad guy? What if he just didn't want to give his supplies up and he was otherwise perfectly civil and just like, no, you're not taking my stuff, I'm not letting you. Like, what would you have done in that situation? And we don't know, and he doesn't know, and I think that's what scares him. Or maybe he does know and that scares him. But either way, the point being that the episode ends with him saying the phrase, Holden would never have approved of that move. Shit, I need to get back to my crew. I'm losing.
Yeah, it's that self-realization of, I'm losing my moral center. I need Holden back quick.
Yeah, I need my guiding light to direct me.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, given that this is now episode 6 out of 10, if we're seeing the crew back together this season, it's the finale. And even then, I'm not convinced we will. I'm part of me thinks we won't see them join back up. And I think season 6, knowing that season 6 is the final one and they're building to their ending now, I can see seasons. A lot of the fun of season 6 might be everyone getting back together again.
It's very possible. The one last hurrah almost.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a great ending. Because it's probably a very downbeat episode compared to the last few. This is maybe taking more of a breath than some of the other ones have been.
Yeah, you've got the quote unquote happier moments near the start. With I think Avasarala's stuff is happier. The Alex and Bobby scene.
Well, yeah, we'll get to those. Although it's notable that they're both at the start, and then the episode,
yes, exactly,
does everything else with us.
Yeah,
because Amos's stuff is just basically going through the forest. They don't want to go to the authorities because they might, try and arrest Clarissa. So they go.
And as he points out, there's not really any prisons, so they'll probably just shoot you.
Yeah. It's a couple of little bits of mythology that are dropped here, though. The reforestation program, the idea that there was initiatives to actually grow more forests because we'd ruined too many of them.
That makes sense
over history. Yeah, no, it does. It makes complete sense. They find a dead guy though, and yeah, so they find a dead guy. They take some supplies from him, a jacket, some boots for Clarissa. She finds a chocolate bar, and her excitement is infectious.
All perfectly normal post-apocalyptic stuff.
Oh yeah, and then they find a guy at a campfire, and I mean, we all noticed him saying "nice jacket." He clearly recognized that. He either killed his buddy, or he killed him, or something. Like he definitely killed this guy, whoever he was.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll come back up next episode. It feels like it was set up for something, or maybe it was just a genius little tease for that scene afterwards where Amos thinks he might be following them because he's suspicious.
I think it is. I think it puts Amos on edge, and it makes him alert, and he's like, okay, not trusting this.
Yeah, and he's smart enough that I believe him when he doesn't think he's getting followed. Because they stop and check. It's beat.
He knows well enough. Like he says, he grew up like this. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So, but the one thing they hear from this guy is there's this sort of end of times nut job who's got like a fort and supplies, and he's been preparing for this his whole life. This is him and his element. And Amos goes in with his hands up. The guy makes him strip. He claims he has like a water purifier or something. Over at the road. The guy's going to shoot him anyway. This is Clarissa's moment to get the implant going, and it's actually, I kind of loved how horror movie this was. Like it was like this POV shot of her just like slashing at him.
I'd forgotten how horrific it looks when she does this.
Yeah, and it was capped perfectly, I think, by the splatter of blood, because she shoots him in the back, and it just splatters onto naked. Well, he's got his underwear on, but naked, otherwise naked Amos.
Yeah.
Just the literally blood on his hands. Kind of thing.
And his face.
Yes, which is more visually interesting, of course.
Yes.
And then they go in, they camp out inside, get some fire, because they're cold, they're in the snow all episode, they're freezing, and it is winter right now, so I was kind of sympathizing, sitting like bundling up. I'm like, I'm feeling cold myself.
I'm not looking forward to tomorrow's weather, let me tell you that. I don't know if you've seen what it's like around here, but
I have not, but
snow all day.
I think I have that. Not that anyone's interested, listen to an Expanse review of what my weather's like tomorrow, but just for curiosity's sake, it is just light showers for me all day.
Nope.
2 degrees Celsius, which is better than it has been. So
you're in the positive numbers.
Yeah, suck it.
Oh, I'm jealous. I am not getting that.
I'm supposed to be colder. I'm further north, so suck it. Anyway, so yes.
Just for context, tomorrow, -5 Celsius for me.
Your hair's going to go white quicker than you expect, I think. So yeah, they have this sort of like fireplace scene at the end. It was I was almost thinking it may get romantic a little bit. It was the setting was right. They're out there
I feel with other characters it would.
Yeah,
but Amos is too practical almost.
Honestly, maybe that's a good way to show how different these two characters are. Is that they're in this romantic fireplace setting, they're trapped, they're isolated, they've been through this ordeal together. And yet, that's never where it goes to Amos going, shit, I'm losing my humanity. We need to get back to Holden. That's where it goes. I kind of love that. So,
yeah. It's darkly funny, but it's a very impactful moment to end on.
I did chuckle. I did think it was funny when it ended in a good way, in a good dark way.
I think it's supposed to. Yeah.
I think this episode's a testament to how even the littler things in the show, once they've built up some stuff to make them meaningful, like it's this moment at the end only matters because of who Amos is and everything that precedes him, but
and Amos in context with the crew as well.
Yeah, so everything about this only works because of the backstory of the show, because of all the time we've spent with him. It's just that satisfying not even a payoff per se, but it's basically like I talk about how sometimes when you introduce things in a show, eventually they become shorthand mechanics, and this was a mechanic to really, oh shit, things are getting bad because this is where Amos is now.
I think this is, in many ways, might shape up to be the best season of the show.
I'm
because
kind of feeling it, yeah.
Pretty much every episode we're talking about, oh, they're relying on all these, and when I say relying, I don't mean as a crutch, I mean they're utilizing all these tricks that only work because of how far into the show they are and how well it's been written up to this point. And I'm sure we mentioned it before, but we enjoyed season 4, but I do think this is quite a lot more engaging episode to episode, and part of that might just be that it's paced for weekly format, whereas I do think 4 was maybe paced slightly for the binge because they thought, oh, it's Amazon.
Yeah, but it'll be a fight with season 3. I'll say I'll have to judge it at the end of the season. It'll be a fight with season 3, but we'll see. So yeah, to go to some of the other stuff early in the episode, Avasarala had kind of a nice little emotional thing. She's watching footage because her husband's in New York, and like literally Midtown's all flooded. Because we heard about this briefly, but she's watching this, and we hear in a minute that her daughter and her grandkids are safe, but she's still
haven't heard about the husband. Yeah. And obviously they've been in not a great place this season. They've barely been talking, so it means a little bit more because they didn't get to make up before anything.
But she's such she gets very emotional in her debates, but she gets emotional kind of an angry, impassioned way. Seeing her here just quietly crying to herself felt kind of meaningful.
I think just the way at the end of the scene where she's like shaking as well.
Yeah, vulnerable. Yeah, because they obviously after the meeting with the guy, which we'll get to. Yeah. She has this moment where it's okay. It's time to put the war. All it is like her bling and stuff, but it's kind of like I need to look like I'm confident again. I need to get the war paint back on and go back into the trenches.
It's putting the uniform back on, isn't it? Yeah.
Even though for her the uniform is this ridiculous necklace that looks
right, but it's part of the perception. It's part of the persona of leader of Avasarala.
Oh sure. Because basically what happens here is the acting Secretary General comes in because they can't find anyone else that's higher ranking. This is very Battlestar Galactica, by the way, just to compare it to another. Nothing else is really compared to that show that much, but that show literally starts with the highest ranking person in the government now is the Secretary of Education, and she becomes the new president of the people. So that's kind of reminded me of that a little bit. And I appreciate this guy came in here. He's like, yeah, I kind of want you to join the cabinet because I only get into politics because I thought the current transport guy was a bit shit. In my city, and
I could do a better job.
And he probably did, but he deals with transport. He does. Was it trade routes? He said was what he's good at. He designed a lot of good trade routes.
Yeah,
it's like I'm not built for this.
I like this guy. He knows his limits. He's not here for power. He's like, look, I'm good at what I do, or at least I'm sure he thinks he is, and maybe he is. He obviously got voted in. The people must like him enough.
He could be the best transports guy ever, but it doesn't make him suited for defending the planet from terrorist threat.
But what's important is he recognizes that and goes immediately to find someone who does know what they're doing.
Yes, he's
in this case of Avasarala.
He's level-headed and humble, and it was kind of refreshing because part of me almost wanted to see some hotshot get the head of transport comes in. He's like, oh, I've got power, baby. I'm gonna.
Yeah, I really like that he never actively says, look, I need you to take control.
No,
there's this understanding between them that chain of command exists, and he has to nominally stay the acting Secretary General. And when he invites her to be part of his current provisional cabinet, it's with the understanding that she'll be providing a lot of the main input here.
Yeah, it's kind of almost unspoken that he's saying, hey, you need to really be the one behind me acting as Secretary General making decisions. But obviously, from a hierarchy point of view, I'm the one who has the title. I'm the one who has to stand up there and sort of make those calls. But I'm going to be looking at you for a lot of decisions.
I appreciate how none of this is said, but both of them know exactly what's going on. And neither of them are holding it against the other. No. Avasarala is not being petty and being like, well, I want the title or anything like that. She's just relieved that, not that she gets to do something, but that, she's being listened to again, I guess, and not in a selfish way, but more that she can help, and she knows she can help.
Yeah, so That's a really good scene. Go to the Rassi. Monica's coming along for the trip. They fixed the ship. Taking out the sabotage, coding in the core, or whatever the exact.
Whatever it was, they
yeah.
purged it all. Yeah, it's fine.
So she's coming along, and we just basically get to see them leave. The one kind of emotional beat before the titles hit is there's a message from Naomi that she's left before she went, saying if things go wrong, and we don't get to hear it. He stares at it very intently, but we don't get. I
don't know if he listens to it yet.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out if part of me thinks we could start next episode. That's how we start, is him listening to this, or part of it could be he has listened to it, but we don't get to hear it until some big dramatic montage where we hear it said over something bad.
I think there's also the possibility that he actively hasn't listened to it and doesn't want to, because he doesn't want to acknowledge that maybe something has gone wrong, and it's like, no, I'm never going to listen to it. Yeah,
no, that's definitely a possibility. So we'll see how that goes. The Alex and Bobby stuff, it's basically just how do they get out of this situation, and they're getting docked by one of the ships. One of the ships just came over and docked, but they're prepared. Bobby's got her armor on, so we get a really nice little badass moment for her coming out and shooting them up a little bit. Alex is also in just a regular, suit, and he jumps over to the ship and plants a grenade in their thruster. Bobby though does get to have her superhero moment where she has to hold because they try. It's
the Captain America with the helicopter.
It is,
moment.
yeah. Because they try to undock, and she's like, "Oh no, Alex is still on that ship." So she basically goes to grab the edge of the bridge, and has the door, and is just holding as long as she can with this armor, obviously doing most of the heavy lifting. To the point where it starts sparking at the shoulder. You're like, oh god, no, Bobby, let go.
And she's like, I have to stop. Alex, you better get over here. And he's still over there, so he has to, space jump.
Yeah, and I actually love that this is in POV because the Razorback is spinning, so it looks like he's getting close to it, but then it like spins out of his view. So it's like, oh shit, it's just empty space. Oh no! But then it kind of comes back in, and he does. And obviously, as soon as he hits it, his mag boots or whatever are turned on. So it's like, no, okay. Right, I'm here.
And then he crawls down a bit, and Bobby drags him inside, and they celebrate.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard Alex say "mother effer" quite, because he just because they blow the other ship and it goes, and he's like, "Take that, you mother effers!" He just yells it. It's like and given how kind of low key, kind of tense, depressing a lot of the rest of the episode is, this was kind of just this is your one uplifting beat, is them getting this one up on the
not even let's say they have these moments of elation, excitement at the start, like between Avasarala being brought back in, and and Alex and Bobby here, and then everything goes to shit for the rest of it.
Yes. So it's weird to say this. I will say this is kind of the most low key one since like episode 2. It is therefore maybe the least exciting one since episode 2, but this is still
it's got a lot
extremely
of stuff
great.
I really like.
Yeah, a lot of good character building, a lot of good mythology building. Made me excited for the next one. We're recording this the day that episode 7 came out on Prime, so and they've basically been up every other day. So we'll have episode 7 later this week. I think because this will go up on Saturday. I think. Yes. Oh, so actually maybe Monday before episode 7 goes up. But episode 8 goes out next Wednesday. We'll be there the day of release. That night we'll be recording the episode 8 review, so we'll be finally caught up. Although it's kind of scary, we're already over halfway through the season. I'm like, no, I need more.
Yeah. It's just 10 episodes again.
Just 10, yeah. Well, as far as I know, but yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming so.
Yeah. So there you go, episode 6, another solid one. I think. Yeah, I mean, it says a lot that 6 episodes in we're saying this could rival season 3, because season 3 had all the end of book 2, and then all of book 3 was in that last 7 episode mini-season almost.
So good.
And that was all the ring stuff, and that was fantastic. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. So let's know what you thought of episode 6 in the comments below. Please do like and subscribe. It is very important on YouTube and really helps our success and growth, so please do. You can also support us financially over at patreon.com/mailedfuzztv from as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses and help keep all the content coming. Otherwise, catch us on Twitter at @mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?